This week on Africa Weekly, we speak to the Nigerian migrants who have returned to their homeland after making the difficult journey to Europe. We visit Zimbabwe, where scientists' hopes of developing heat-tolerant crops are growing. And we go to Kenya, where an NGO is fighting to get its message across about family planning. But first, a summary of the stories that made the headlines this week. The US presidential elections gripped the world this week, with Republican candidate Donald Trump's triumph defying predictions. In Africa, a controversial Nigerian televangelist claimed Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton would win, while residents of the Kenyan town of Kisumu saw the same outcome in their own mock US election. The real result was met with mixed feelings.
I'm happy that Trump won because of the policies he had. And on women, I don't think people are saying that it's a bit not fair for women, but I think it's just about good leadership and power.
We are not really happy, but we just have to accept the results because the great people of America have spoken.
Meanwhile, Barack Obama's step-grandmother, Sarah, had this advice to give to the president-elect.
Elections are there to be won. What Trump should do now is embrace the leadership, just like Barack did.
But in Liberia, the president appeared unable to contain her disappointment. Trump's win cast a shadow over UN climate talks, which opened in Marrakesh this week. The landmark Paris Pact could be threatened by the president-elect, who has called climate change a hoax. Stunned participants insisted Trump could not derail the global shift to clean energy. The first of around 1,000 Kenyan soldiers returned from South Sudan after the government announced it would withdraw from the UN peacekeeping mission. The pullout is in protest to the UN firing the Kenyan commander of the mission for failing to protect civilians. At least 25 soldiers were killed in Somalia's disputed town of Galkayo after fighting between rival regional forces. The conflict marked the collapse of a short-lived peace agreement between the two semi-autonomous Somali states. Music fans tuned in to the All Africa Music Awards in Lagos, showcasing the very best the continent has to offer. The awards recognise artists who have given African music a competitive edge on the global scene. Nigerians who dreamed of a better life in Europe are returning home after finding the reality of life there did not live up to their expectations.
For Gloria, Europe was not the safe haven that she'd hoped for. After a month in Italy using prostitution and illegal work to get by, she decided to return to her homeland, Nigeria. And today, she has no regrets.
Today, I can say I'm successful, I'm okay, I'm happy, though it wasn't easy. So nothing good comes easily. You must struggle.
Human trafficking is a major problem in Nigeria. 22,000 migrants reached Europe via Italy in 2015. Roland heads up an NGO in Benin City, which raises awareness of opportunities and helps migrants return home.
As long as the economic situation remains in a very terrible shape, people will continue to move, in search for better opportunities. Unfortunately, many of them will become victims of human trafficking.
Mike was given help to return to Nigeria after he was refused asylum in France. He's now been able to set himself up and open a small shop.
The condition was very difficult. Sometimes when we are in our country, we feel that if we go to the country, it's more better. But when you arrive there, you discover that it's more difficult than here in Nigeria. So I see the condition, to me, was very difficult. So I decided to come back to Nigeria.
But it's getting harder for migrants like Mike to go back to their homeland. France recently cut the amount of compensation for immigrants who voluntarily want to return home. Added to that, mafia bosses and social stigma can make the journey all the more difficult.
Zimbabwean scientist Cosmos Magaragosho is breeding a new heat-tolerant variety of maize. In spite of high temperatures and low rainfall, The result of climate change and the El Niño phenomenon, this hybrid maize has managed to survive. The seeds are produced by cross-pollinating 2 lines, resulting in higher and later yields.
Basically, it means transferring genes from one plant to another type so that you create a new type that is the characteristics that you want.
Once referred to as the breadbasket of Africa, Zimbabwe used to export maize. Now it imports about 2 million metric tons a year to feed itself. Earlier this year, Zimbabwe declared a state of disaster with 2.5 million people in urgent need of food aid. But farmers testing this hybrid maize managed to get by.
Compared to other seeds, these seeds survived the heat and dry conditions that we experienced, and this resulted in a better harvest. I should have enough to last until February next year.
Efforts to roll out the hybrid maize are being slowed down by government testing and approval procedures. Experts believe more should be done to speed up the process to prepare for even higher temperatures in the future.
The recent research says that crops aren't keeping up with the pace of climate change, and this is simply because as the environment warms, a crop will mature earlier than under the lower temperatures. When a crop matures earlier, it gives you less yield.
Drought is high on the agenda at the UN COP22 climate talks in Morocco. But while world leaders discuss how to cap global warming, farmers in southern Africa need to find ways to adapt to climate change in order to survive.
This is a family planning workshop in northeast Kenya, a poor and conservative part of the country where most people are ethnic Somalis. Only 2% of the population here use contraception, compared to the national Kenyan average of 58%. Women are often married before reaching the age of 18.
I started to use family planning to be in better health, and so my children would be in better health too. Before I started spacing out my children, I was very unwell. At the start of my pregnancy, I would get sharp pains during childbirth too. Today, I'm much better.
The improvements to Sophia's health are largely thanks to an awareness programme launched by Save the Children in 2014.
We sensitize them on importance of family planning, that is importance of child spacing. We sensitize them on effect of early marriages. We also sensitize them on effect of FGM.
But getting their message across is challenging. In Somali culture, large families are a sign of wealth, and the average woman gives birth to 8 children.
African culture, people used to get several wives and get a lot of children. So they have seen this as a foreign ideology, foreign idea, in order to limit their number so that they can colonize them.
The programme's message also clashes with religious norms, with many believing family planning is forbidden by Islam. The NGO seeks the help of influential religious leaders to help combat reservations. Following several weeks of reflection, and after receiving the blessing of her husband, Fatuma has decided to use a contraceptive implant.
Using family planning is a personal decision, and given that my religion accepts it, I'm going to use it.
After just 2 years, the results from the awareness drive are encouraging. Like Fatuma, more than 3,000 women started using contraception this year, more than double the number from the year before.
The Democratic Republic of Congo's national team trained in the capital Kinshasa ahead of a World Cup qualifier against Guinea. The team's manager said he sees no pressure in achieving their goal. Next week, we go deep into the Moroccan mountains, where water pumps powered by the sun are easing the pressure of climate change. That's all from us at Africa Weekly. Until next week.